what he says is a matter of urgent national importance. However, Senate Speaker Lusaka says he's yet to receive any request from either the majority or minority leader who are mandated to initiate such a move, as Duncan Haemba reports.
There is a crisis because of constitutional violation.
In his quest for a special sitting, Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei is seeking to have the Senate resolve to summon CS for Interior Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai, as well as Presidential Escort Commander and General Service Unit Commandant. This follows the recent replacement of the elite GSU guards guarding DP William Ruto's residences by administration police officers.
One of the resolutions is the circumstances and justification that why the Deputy President security detail was withdrawn, yet is part of presidency, and he should enjoy a specific and special security protection as per the dictates of the Constitution.
The matter has elicited mixed reactions, with some leaders questioning why the decision was done. Some felt the move was exposing the security of the DP, but the National Police Service maintains the move was a normal reassignment of police officers.
The issue of security should not be politicized. So I expect my colleagues in the Senate and Parliament to rise up beyond political competition and discuss this issue with sobriety that matters, because security is so critical.
Deputy President William Ruto on Sunday downplayed the changes, saying it was a non-issue. And on Monday, the DP met with the new AP officers guarding his residences and was seen taking tea with them.
Wanaweza hata kulete G4S, wanaweza kunisaidia hapo nyumbani. There is no problem.
This is a constitutional matter. It's not a political matter.
Kama mimi ninakimbia matatizo yangu, mimi nitatatua matatizo ya wananchi namna gani? Kama mimi ni muoga na ni msaliti na toroka matatizo ati kwa sababu iko changamoto katika serikali.
Nandi Senator says he has so far secured 12 signatures and is hunting for 3 more to meet the required threshold of at least 15 members to request for a special sitting. The Senate has been on recess and will resume sittings on Tuesday next week. Duncan Haemba, KTN News.
Away from what's developing in Parliament, we shift focus to politics right now, where former Prime Minister Raila Odinga began his Mount Kenya charm offensive, announcing a basket of goodies, including making effort to have key ingredients of the recently nullified Building Bridges initiative implemented. But what strategists are his allies likely to deploy in their popularization of Odinga on the mountain? And what obstacles stand on the way of this campaign? Murimi Mwangi interrogates.
For a man against whose name the past 3 general election campaigns on the Mount Kenya region have been anchored, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga could as well be easily dismissed as venturing into uncharted political waters in any quest to conquer the mountain. But basking on the political warmth of his now 3-year-old ceasefire deal with President Uhuru Kenyatta, whose government is approaching its homestretch, Odinga has launched a fresh charm offensive.
Tuliamua kwamba tumeshikana pamoja na tutatoa candidate mmoja ambaye tutaleta huku mountain kuja kutembea na yeye, sio mwingine ni baba Raila Odinga.
But perhaps the former Prime Minister's greatest impediment to scaling the mountain is the headache of how to undo the anti-Odinga narrative that has dominated the mountain during his past 4 stabs at the presidency, entrenching an even deeper rivalry birthed by the tough supremacy battles of the late 60s between his father, the late Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and founding President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. So what strategies are Odinga allies likely to deploy to demystify the so-called Odinga phobia on the mountain?
We have always occupied different camps. Mount Kenya and the Rick, we have always occupied different camps. So there will be some work that needs to be done, because the damage that is there, we occasioned it ourselves as leaders. And if you realize, Uhuru started asking for forgiveness a long time ago.
So you can see now why people are hesitant on Raila because of that record. That does not mean that they can't listen, but you have to tell them that maybe they are wrong.
Yeah.
But that memory is there, and it's very hard to wipe it out.
When he comes, we of course receive him, because when a guest comes to your area, it's unkind for you not to receive him. We will receive him. But it is upon him to go near the people so that they cannot see him as the giant of a person who can eat people in the manner that he was depicted before by those of us who campaigned against him.
Yet with President Kenyatta fast heading to his projected exit next year, Odinga faces another hurdle. Deputy President William Ruto, who has capitalized on Kenyatta's past 9 years in power to build his own networks within the mountain, and who is currently cashing in on the raging national anti-political establishment wave to popularize his hustlers' political narrative.
The people of Mount Kenya, they know one thing. They go in the track of somebody. They know that Ruto helped their son, Uhuru Kenyatta, when he needed help. He went for it. He did not go because of anything else. He went for two things: a good friend and somebody who can bring him vote.
It was more difficult to say Ruto than it is to say Raila. Raila is propaganda. These are the issues. There were issues that had happened in Rift Valley, and one has to remove himself from them. It's not as difficult as it was.
Besides Odinga, other presidential hopefuls that have frequented the mountain are One Kenya Alliance leaders Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka and Gideon Moi. A tug of war expected to escalate in the coming days as Kenyatta convenes another retreat of Mount Kenya leaders. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News.
Still on a similar note, in just over a month from now, residents of Kiagu Ward in Meru and Ngu Masumba Ward in Makueni County will be heading to the polls to elect their new representatives. Already, the by-elections have come down to 2 after Jubilee's Abdi Abbas Abdullahi was elected unopposed in the Eldas Ward by-election. However, the Kiagu Ward race and the Ngu Masumba Ward mini-poll are set to be another litmus test yet for the Jubilee Party and DP Ruto's UDA, Moses Kuria's Chama cha Kazi and Wiper Party under Kalonzo Musyoka. Now, KTN's Emmanuel Tor explains the matrix of the by-elections that is shaping up to be another grueling political contest as clock ticks towards the 2022 general election.
Ahead of the October 14th by-elections. However, one battle, the Eldas Ward seat, has already been won through negotiated democracy through the elders in the community. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, is now expected to gazette Abdi Abbas Abdullahi, the brother of the late MCA, as Jubilee Party MCA-elect.
Lazima tuchague ni mtu gani ambaye sisi tunaweza kumwamini kumpa hiyo jukumu. Ni mtu gani ambaye ataangalia maslaha ya umma nchi hiyo, wanaojiweza na wasiojiweza.
However, the crux of the matter lies in Kiagu Ward in Meru and Ngu Masumba Ward in Makueni County. Already the Chama cha Kazi leader Moses Kuria, who seems to chart his own path from the UDA side, has vowed not to pull out his candidate in the Kiagu Ward race as he did in Kiambaa about 2 months ago.
This is a price of democracy. So we are here until the end, and we are going to field candidates all over the country come next year.
But as the rambling continues, political analysts say the battle could only be for the bragging rights between President Uhuru Kenyatta's Jubilee side, UDA allied to DP Ruto, which is buoyed by a win in Kiambaa, and Kuria's new outfit Chama cha Kazi.
Smaller parties are going to gather ground as we get closer to 2022 elections, and it doesn't necessarily mean that these parties will remain solely independent parties toward the end. They might form larger coalitions as well.
On the other hand, the race in Ngu Masumba Ward will also be a major battle between Wiper Party's Eshio Mwaiwa, tied to Kalonzo Musyoka, who has carved a niche as Ukambani Supremo, and Daniel Musau of UDA under the tutelage of DP Ruto. The two are the only ones who have been cleared by the IEBC to run.
This time around, community is going to have a big say on who they choose, just because now we have much more candidates and variety to pick from. So parties are going to be searching for popular faces.
With the campaigns already gaining momentum, the Jubilee side will be keen to win more as it seeks to revamp itself following a string of election losses in recent by-elections. Emmanuel To, KTN News, Nairobi.
All right, so that's the latest in terms of politics. Let's shift focus to education matters right now, where we take you to the county of Elgeyo Marakwet, where a 14-year-old Winnie Jebiwot Kemboi, a 2020 KCPE student, attempted to commit suicide after her parents failed to raise school fee. The 14-year-old girl ingested a poisonous agrochemical, an acracide, at their home in Kipsaina, Elgeyo Marakwet County on Wednesday last week, after it became apparent that she wouldn't be able to join secondary school. Elvis Koskei with his story.
Winnie Jebiwot had been admitted to Turesha Mixed Secondary School, located 20 kilometers away from her village. The girl has not reported to school since reopening due to lack of school fees. After learning that she won't be joining secondary school, she ingested 20 milliliters of the poisonous agrochemical at their home in Kipsaina, Elgeyo Marakwet County.
Ana tip vile iko ilikuwa ya 20 mils. Nikaona amehanywa 15 mils. Nikaona amepaki tano tu.
Alikunywa mpaka akapaka kidogo.
Ulimpata tu hapa amekaa chini ama alikuwa
alikuja kutoka huko chini escarpment. Nikavukisha yeye mpaka hapo. Tukashika kuweka pikipiki.
She was rushed to the nearby Chepkoro Health Center, where she was treated and later discharged. The girl is still recovering from the effects of the acaricide.
Nimepelekwa kwa hospital ya Bwari. Baadaye akarudi nyumbani, amekuwa amepona kidogo.
Unaona hata mahali anaishi, ana mahali pa kusomea.
The biggest problem now that has made this girl maybe to attempt you ila amekuwa amefanya maybe the friends also, the group of the age wale wameenda secondary school. She feels frustrated and she needs assistance.
A disturbed Jebiwot reeling from the near-death experience is still at home nearly a month after 2020 KCP candidates reported to Form 1. Even though Jebiwot dreams big, a dream will just remain that, a dream, unless help comes from somewhere.
Nikaita Duresha Day School. Karo ikapotea.
Sina uwezo, nimesomesha watoto wengine mpaka sina chochote na achapata kazi. Sasa mwenye anaye uwezo anisaidie.
Meanwhile, Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha was in Baringo County to follow up on the 100% transition. He took issue with the Rift Valley Regional Director of Education, John Lekakenyi, for allegedly failing to supervise schools in Baringo.
I'm just telling you, I will not take it. And I'm telling you in public. You must make sure that you are available and you are doing your work.
I'm very much available, sir.
But you are telling me yourself you have not been to Baringo.
But I've gone to other counties. It's just that I've not come to...
Who is in charge of Baringo?
Yes, sir.
No, well, you shut up. He's the one in charge of everybody.
Sir.
Elvis Kosgei, KTN News, Elgeyo Marakwet County.
Well, the Cabinet Secretary right there still pushing for 100% transition. And it's positive news from that particular piece by Elvis Kosgei just yesterday after it aired. Senator Kipchumba Murkomen reached out to the family and he confirmed that he has arranged for Winnie Jebiwot to be taken to a good boarding school and mentioned that he would take care of the school fee and she should be in school by close of business today. So impactful journalism, don't you think? Good story right there. Let's take a look at the front pages, what you can expect today in the dailies. With me, as I mentioned earlier, Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, and the Daily Nation. Beginning with the Standard, the front page, panic as president plans big shakeup. It's all to do with the looming reshuffle as anxiety grips Uhuru's inner circle as it emerges that he's in the process of reorganizing government to accommodate opposition leaders, with some cabinet secretaries, CASs and PSs on the chopping board as the president enters the home stretch. More details on page 10 on that particular story, even as they have a picture right there of the deputy president drinking tea, sharing a cup of tea with his new security team. All smiles. Perhaps they were really enjoying the conversation and the cup of tea. Some of the stories you can expect right there. But on the front page of the Daily Nation, politicians take 2022 battle to the church. And it's all to do with the restrictions, where there's a ban on public gatherings, including rallies, in place to curb the spread of COVID-19. Now, due to this unease and muted protest by some religious leaders, as politicians turn to the pulpit into a campaign platform, blurring the line that separates state from church. However, for some pastors, it's harvest time, as these heavyweights don't come empty-handed. So where exactly do you draw the line when it comes to politics and faith and using the pulpit in terms of passing these agendas? The Daily Nation has more details on page 4 and 5, even as they highlight the scramble for COVID-19 vaccines within the county. Some of the stories we'll get to talk about during this particular segment of Press Review. Allow me to introduce our panelists. Joining us in studio right here physically, I'm joined by one Ashford Muguku, who's a legal and political researcher. It's great to have you with us. From our city center studios, I'm joined by Nerima Wako, who's the executive director of Siasa Place, and from Naivasha via way of Zoom, Alex Manyasi, a familiar face on the show, who is definitely going to add his voice as a governance expert. Gentlemen and lady, many thanks for your time. Good morning. I'd like to begin with the gentleman, the gentleman right here in studio. Ashford, perhaps let's begin taking a look at the front page of the Standard. It seems to be panic as the president is planning yet another big shakeup in his cabinet, all to do with the looming reshuffle. Perhaps this will necessitate the government setting or prioritizing the Big Four agenda as his legacy, the president's legacy. So on page 10, they highlight this. He's expected to sack some of his lieutenants who are publicly engaging in politics, and these changes are geared towards ensuring the president's legacy projects are not interrupted as he maintains a firm grip on government. Ashford, we have a funny working scenario right now where the opposition, purported opposition, is part of the government, so one would assume the shakeup is perhaps to make way for the ODM loyalists into the government. What say you about this scenario, this close to the general election?
Thank you very much, Jesse. As you say, we are living in very interesting times in this country as far as the politics are concerned. But I think if, as the Standard headline is saying, that there's panic as the president plans a big shakeup, if there's going to be the organization of government with a view to either appointing Kenyans from whatever political divide, for me, what I would think is that is a good thing. I really don't mind any Kenyan who merits whatever position, whether they are in the opposition, whether they are in whatever political party, to join government. That is good for the people of Kenya. I think I'm okay with that.
Okay, it's a good move from where you sit.
For the president to do that, that's okay.
Okay, it might definitely add some impetus towards, finalizing his legacy projects. Let's listen from Nerima Wako. And this close to the general election, one would assume that these state officers were also getting ready to at least step down or quit by February 9th, if that's the date IEBC had set aside, 6 months before the general election, at least those who are interested in elective positions. And we've had about 11 cabinet secretaries might be interested. So what say you about this pending shakeup, perhaps the impending stand down of the state officers who are interested in elective positions? What does this mean for the track record of the Jubilee administration in this second term?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jesse. I think that what we need to be looking at and what everybody will be conversing around is the politicization of it. Like you mentioned, it's toward the end of the president's term. And as you know, when it comes to a race, it's not about how you start the race, it's about how you finish the race. So toward the end, he's going to be focused on his legacy, true. When we say the individuals that he will select or change, it's not necessarily about their political ambitions. It's about the future of Kenya's politics, 2022, and what the president views and where he's going to lie in terms of support. That's what everybody's going to be looking at. So when we view the changes, a lot of people obviously are going to be eyeing whether it's going to be supporters of Raila Odinga, mainly opposition, and that's what it's going to mean. Does that mean that that's where the president will fall in 2022? As much as he has been saying it often, it's something that now he's solidifying toward the end of his legacy. That's what it's more about. So even though they just have a few months left within the office, it's still a lot of time to make a lot of drastic changes. A very classic example, we've been seeing a lot of construction happening on our roads. People are working overnight. And that's going to be the same thing as well when we look at the counties. So people are going to be concerned about being able to utilize the little time that they have to be able to meet whatever it is that the president is requiring from them as his team. He is able to do that. He's the captain of his team. He can make shuffles if he wishes so, if he feels that people are not working well within his team. But this particular shuffle is going to be very political.
And Nerima, do you think we're time-barred in terms of delivering on this legacy projects? What exactly will President Kenyatta be remembered for? Others term it as the Big Four agenda, the unity drive in the country. Are we time-barred?
Jesse, I love that you asked if we're time-barred. When are we ever on time with anything? Honestly, I just feel that we do not have much time. Time is very limited, but again, that's not something that's unrealistic for Kenya. That's something that we honestly work around. We've almost made it cultural. We always do things last minute. And toward the end, we're going to see a lot of drastic changes, and that's expected. So I think it's a little too late, but that's also something that is not unheard of. It's very common in our politics.
Well, a day in politics is a lifetime. So, Manyasi, as we're talking about this pending cabinet reshuffle, if and when it happens, there's of course that political link towards it. This close to the 2022 general election, the conversation has been, at least from the DP's camp, that the failures and successes during the second time have nothing to do with me. The president mentioned he's been able to do much during his second term in office than his first term in office. But the DP mentioned the failures during the second term pinned them towards the opposition parties that have taken over the committees in parliament. So with this pending shakeup in cabinet, do you think this tag of incumbency will be far-fetched in terms of Deputy President riding on it? Will he be able to distance himself once this cabinet reshuffle takes place? Because one would believe the UDA loyalists are on their way out.
Good morning to all of you this morning. One thing that I will need to say is that it's going to be dependent on how the reshuffle is done, if it's going to be done. I say that because there are several factors to consider when looking at this reshuffle, if it comes. Number one is that some of us, and I've been on record having said that before, expect this reshuffle to have happened at least 6 months ago. The reason why is that then you give assuming I'm appointed a cabinet secretary today, then you go into office with budgets that were done already, with plans that were done already. There's a possibility that with expenditure that is already almost committed fully. And so you're getting into office, probably the only impact that you might have is then to wait for the 2022 budget process. for you to have some level of control over certain things. And so that's one. So in terms of delivery, it's going to be very limited in terms of how much the cabinet secretaries who will then come in will do, apart from several things that I consider long-hanging fruits and things that do not need much. For example, if you came in as the Minister for Security or the Minister for Transport, for that matter, or any other minister that is related to things that are service-oriented and related, it's possible to quickly fix some of the challenges that we're having. For example, can you quickly fix the Matatu madness? Can you quickly make sure that there's lack of lawlessness in our transport system? Can you make sure that those areas that are a bit insecure because of laxity, not because of lack of equipment and personnel, that are actually dealt with? So you could quickly do some of those things. However, in terms of much impact, in terms of roads, in terms of infrastructure, large infrastructure projects, in terms of even agriculture, there will be very little that the incoming person will do, given the time. However, having looked at that one side, on the other side, I am really hoping that for that, if the president then will want to have a support geared towards a certain direction, then he could use the cabinet slots as a way of enhancing that. And the only option he has at this point in time is to then appoint a cabinet that will have a very good face of Kenya. When I say very good face of Kenya, because we have always said that I talked about the face of Kenya, but if you go into the details, then you realize that there's not much face of the country then that you have. So by then fixing some of those inefficiencies and what I call optic challenges and deficiencies, then you will end up with a cabinet where you will then have people who have been observing government as a preserve over certain people, certain communities, then feel like they have been considered in cabinet. And once you do that, then you start changing and having the hearts of some of those people endeared towards you. And therefore, politically, and in terms of national unity, then you end up with a cabinet which is not serving much in terms of what you want to economically get out, but serving much in terms of Kenyan feeling like they belong. And like having the current scenario where we have had cabinet ministers who have zero influence. Where they come from, probably they will pass unnoticed. Where they come from, they have they are not known to, and I would not even want to mention names, but we know some of them. Even if they passed in their rural home, no one will even say hi to them. So by just creating, excuse me, a scenario where you get people who bring the face of the country, but also who have some level of influence, then you're likely to end up with a better country than before.
Okay, well noted. Ashford, I think this also begs the question. I mean, with the 2010 dispensation, we moved away from CSs being political figureheads in the country. Do you think this was the right move? Because this debate resurfaced sooner rather than later when it came to the BBI and what it was proposing. Some of these appointments should come from within Parliament. In terms of accountability and effectiveness, what best suits Kenya's style of leadership?
Yes, thank you, Jesse. Let me just say that in my view, I think this is probably the right moment for His Excellency the President to reorganize his government. And picking it from what you've just mentioned, we're talking about the BBI and what we all know that happened to that project in the High Court and recently in the Court of Appeal. I think it's extremely important that the President picks a team of men and women who are of merit, professional, who can give good advice. And I think it is important. It doesn't really matter so much whether we get them from within Parliament or out of Parliament. What is important is that the president, being the CEO, needs a team that is effective, that can work in cohesion, that will enable the president achieve the objectives that we want to achieve as a people and as a government, and to deliver services to the Kenyan people. Okay, and a team that obviously does not have to engage in politics, so that there are people, men and women who are purely working towards supporting the government efforts for the benefit of everybody, in every sector, right away from whether it's education, health, infrastructure, whether it's legal matters, everything, and somebody who is able to work with all the other arms of government. So I think it is the right time that this is done.
Okay,
Yes.
well noted. Let's listen in from Nerima right now in terms of accountability and effectiveness, because just earlier on we ran a story where Senator Cherargei wants to at least summon the top security figureheads in the country, including Dr. Fred Matiang'i, the Interior Minister, in terms of that particular reshuffle when it comes to the DP security. But on a bigger picture, we've had instances where cabinet secretaries do not appear for summons. So in terms of effectiveness in the current dispensation, what do you think works best? Because we read the cabinet of politicians, but we still have cabinet secretaries who are aiming for elective posts. That's the irony, right?
Yes, it is, because what ends up happening is we lose a lot of sight of things. If we're all busy politicking and out gallivanting and engaging the public, I have no problem with elected members doing that because they were elected. They have a constituencies where they have to go and meet with people who put them in place in parliament to do that work. But when we have cabinet secretaries doing that as well, it makes you wonder what they're doing with their time. And I remember when that was happening, and it was such a big issue because people are saying it's freedom of expression, freedom of speech as well, and they also live in this country and they're also citizens and they need to engage. But that's where we also go wrong because people lose sight, and that's where we dropped the ball as well with BBI, when it now moved away from the public and went directly into the politicians' hands, and we lost sight. And unfortunately, this particular administration is going to be remembered for disobeying court orders, and more likely, on more times, it has been unconstitutional. And that's unfortunate because I have no issue with us reviewing our constitution. That we should do. The fact that it is 11 years today, we should review it. We could make some changes to it. But again, it has to be done with public engagement, and the process has to be done well. And that process is led by particular individuals, which the Constitution mentions very clearly. And it also says that there are particular roles that public officials have, and these individuals were disobeying the Constitution outright.
Okay, well noted. Nerima Wako right there joining us from our City Center studios. Allow us to take a short break. When we come back, we continue with the